Hitesh Jeff, and I am a mindfulness and meditation practitioner, author, as well as an inspirational speaker. And this is In Conversation with the Masters. And in this series, I will be in conversation with open minded, open hearted, and conscious living people from across the globe who will be answering some of life's most profound questions. And today, I am very blessed and lucky to be talking to Kim Knight, who is an entrepreneur, a life coach. She is a coach to the coaches, and Kim specializes in helping businesses reach six-figure incomes. And I have been privy to have done some of Kim's some of her seminars, and I've also spoken to some of the people who have managed through her teachings reach six figures. So I'm so excited, Kim, that you've made time to have a chat with us today. Welcome.
I'm really, really excited to be here. Thanks, Tish. This is quite an honor. Thank you.
I hope people really understand the value that you bring, that you are going to be really bringing to this conversation today. So please grab a pen and paper, take some notes, because this is pure gold that Kim will be sharing with us today. We're going to be going into our mind and let's see what we can extract, the wisdom and love that we can extract from you today, if you would allow.
Absolutely.
So, Kim, let's start off with this question. What is the definition of an entrepreneur? Because a lot of people add this title to their name, thinking that they are an entrepreneur. But a lot of people are just business owners or just business managers. What makes an entrepreneur an entrepreneur?
Well, that's an interesting question. Because you're so right. I don't think an entrepreneur is just a business owner or a self-employed person. I think it's someone who, no matter what, look, I don't know if this is what the dictionary says, but no matter what, their dream and their vision for how it can be is far greater than any obstacle or resilience they may face in their lives. And there's just something that propels them and pushes them forward despite all the challenges and obstacles, because they can actually see the end vision, and because they're very creative and there's an innovation about them that you don't just find in any self-employed person or any business owner. I think it's that creativity, but not only the creativity, it's actually making the creativity happen. That is the secret, because, you know, there are lots of people, with lots of ideas, but ideas are actually, we come up with amazing ideas, Hitesh. I mean, some ideas are just like out of this world ideas. But the thing is, who actually makes those ideas happen? Who actually makes those ideas happen? And it's entrepreneurs that actually do it. You know, someone will say, gee whiz, you know, I had that idea 10 years ago and I didn't do anything about it. And then someone came up with the idea, actually did something with it, and now, you know, has like a multi-million business or something. That's what I think the difference is, that they take the idea, they can imagine it happening, and are prepared to put their time, effort, and money on the line, and sometimes in a big way. Sometimes it's very costly. I'm talking family time. You know, my family are my two little doggies and my family down in Cape Town. You can literally work. I know entrepreneurs, and I've done it, like working 18 hours a day, you know, sleeping in the garage, whatever, to make it happen. There's such a drive in an entrepreneur. It's like an entrepreneur heart. The heart seems to be different to someone who owns a business or self-employed, and I don't mean that in a condescending way. That is what sets them apart. There's something in that entrepreneur heart that just will not let them settle for anything less than what they envision.
So these are actually very special people, special, in that they have to have this heart of gold, but they have to also have this courage to not give up, to be able to face some kind of demon every day of their lives, because every day is a battle, because they have to be able to get up and just keep fighting, because it's not an easy road.
Hitesh, like 100%. It's so interesting you say that because I put a post on Facebook just yesterday
Mm,
about what makes an entrepreneur different, and it's about that courage. I'm sure maybe you've experienced it, but there are times where when you wake up in the morning, you can't pay the electricity bill, you can't put food on the table, you don't know how you're actually going to make it through the next hour, never mind the month. And somehow you draw on something in you that gets you through that next hour. And the interesting thing is, it's about not quitting when everything on the table says you should quit. Everything seems that you should quit, and it's not quitting then. And it's so interesting because I know people that it's happened to, entrepreneurs, that in the next 2 hours or the next 24 hours, the deal that they've been wishing for all their lives
yeah.
actually comes through. So that also, once you start building up your resilience, and when you have those terrible moments, there's something in you that tells you, don't quit too soon. Don't quit too
Mm,
soon. Because I put in all these years, and that deal, that contract, that whatever it may be, could be around the corner, literally around the corner at 5 minutes, 24 hours, or the month. Um, so yeah, that's what I've found. It's not quitting too soon, and that
yeah.
courage, the courage.
It sounds as if you are saying that you cannot become an entrepreneur. It's like you have to be born with some of these values, because once you awaken to, or once you realize, you have this self realization that I am an entrepreneur, you cannot not live a life as an entrepreneur, because you're always thinking and planning and finding ways in which you can either make money or you can serve people. Is that right? Because I think being an entrepreneur is about wanting to serve.
Yes, yes. That's an interesting question. I really do. There's two legs to this. I do believe that you're just born that way. I didn't know I was an entrepreneur because when I was born, that word didn't exist. In fact, in South Africa, up until 10 years ago, it really
Yeah.
was not a word. Now it's
Mm,
an everyday word. And we were not brought up in society to be entrepreneurs. We were brought up to go and get a job, etc., etc. So even if you were an entrepreneur, you didn't know it because the word didn't exist. And any
mm,
crazy ideas you had, your parents or your friends or your peers would say, "Are you crazy? You can't do that. You've got a degree, you need to go and teach," or whatever it may be. Um, but when I look back at my life, I saw that I think I was about 10 years old where I started on the entrepreneurial journey, or I realized now that that was me being an entrepreneur. There was always something more that I wanted. I always had my own little thing going on. I would clean the house for extra money for my mom. That was my first sort of entrepreneur endeavor. And all those
mm,
extra cents I would put in the savings bank. Back in the day, it was in the post office. Then I delivered newspapers. There was always something that I was doing. I realized, way back then I was an entrepreneur. So I do think you're born that way. And sadly, if you don't realize it, you can really get lost in the world of employment and feeling
mm,
unhappy because you don't actually know that you're an entrepreneur. So I think you're born that way. I also think, Hitesh, from what I've discovered, if the person really wants something and is willing enough, you
mm,
can become a property. And what I mean by that, nowadays are not set in stone. Many people are being retrenched, etc.
yes.
And they almost, some people that I know have been forced to start businesses because they've been retrenched. They're not entrepreneurs. They prefer doing whatever they're doing, having a great job, etc., etc. But now they're forced into the situation. So this is what I'm doing through my programs. Or you immerse the person into entrepreneurship, into what it means by being an entrepreneur. And slowly, slowly, they start developing the mindset, the understanding, and the resilience of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I have seen that happen, that a person has come from a corporate background, didn't really want to be an entrepreneur, but been immersed in it and started to love it. And like, there's no turning back. But for that to happen, you've got to really be prepared for the long haul, for the hard haul, and you've got to be willing. You've got to be willing. So when you've lost your job, or when you've been retrenched, whether you like it or not, your willingness has been forced. And many an entrepreneur has been born out of that as well.
I have actually met many people who find the idea of being an entrepreneur very sexy, very attractive, but the moment they get into it, they realize, no, hold on, a 9 to 5 serves me much better. But there is no doubt that you can take a man or a woman and, by simply giving them the right tools and techniques, they can become whatever it is they so desire with their heart.
I love that, Hitesh. You're so right. I mean, if it applies for anything else in life, why can't it apply to entrepreneurship? But 100%, and I know you love the mindset and the power of the mind stuff, which I do as well. But it's all about the right tools. If you give that person the right business tools, the essential business tools, plus you work on this, the mindset, the emotions, the mental stuff, all of that, and you put them together like a tapestry, and you're willing, okay, then you set it, you set for success. Not that the success is going to be easy, but you are set. Yeah.
I just want to clarify one thing here when it comes to the definition of being an entrepreneur. Would you say that the owners of a company such as Checkers or even Spa, would you regard them as an entrepreneur, or are they business owners? I just want to quickly share that my feeling is that they are not entrepreneurs, because they have, their focus is on just growing the one business. For me, being an entrepreneur is having multiple kind of businesses. Would you agree, or would you add to that? Would you
that's an interesting question. So let's take Spa, for example, because Spa is huge all around South Africa, and I'm not sure globally, but definitely around South Africa. And people can buy into a Spa, right? So Spa has been created. They obviously also started off smallish, but now, business owners go and buy a Spa franchise, let's say. I know, the person who bought the Spa up from me. Now, for me, that's not a true entrepreneur, and I really don't mean this in a bad way, but I'll tell you why. Because an entrepreneur has one master. That master is themselves. They are completely accountable to no one else. No one's going to pay the bills. No one's going to force them to work. No one's going to get them out to network. It's completely me, the entrepreneur. Whereas when you have any kind of, let's say, an organization that you buy into, or franchise, even a licenseship, but a licenseship you've got more room to play with. You have two masters. You have you, but you also have those masters that you're accountable to. The Spa organization, the KFC organization, whichever franchise it is. So you cannot do exactly what you want to do. They might give you some license, but you have to follow a certain formula, so it's not yours. You are not the only decision maker. Whereas an entrepreneur on its own, you have to make, or whether you like it or not, you are the only decision maker, until you have your team and everything. So no, I wouldn't regard that as an entrepreneur. I would say it's a business owner.
Great. I really love that answer, and that brings so much of clarity to what is an entrepreneur and what is not an entrepreneur. So I'm going to pose a small challenge to you and ask you if, let's try, can we name 10 values in which an entrepreneur has to have in order to label themselves as an entrepreneur? And I'm gonna actually get the ball rolling here. And you said you have to be creative, you have to be resilient, and you have
Sorry,
to
Tish, I
be,
warned you about the dog.
no worries, no worries. And you have to be, you have to have the desire, you have to have courage, and you have to have the desire to serve people. So I've got four. For to create, be resilient, have courage, and the desire to serve people. Can you add
Okay.
another 6 to that?
Okay, so let's look at that. Definitely the right mindset. You know, if you come in it with a mindset of making quick money, I think you're going to have a serious challenge. Okay, so the mindset of an entrepreneur, which you can also grow, as we discussed, and the belief, I can if I think I can. The belief that you can actually make this happen. I think you also need to be willing to invest in yourself. So a lot of people want to make the money, but they don't want to spend the money to make the money. You know, to spend the money, to spend the time, to self-educate, upskill, etc. So education, I would say education is a big, big one. Let me think now. Oh, okay, a big one, Hitesh. I have seen this actually bring entrepreneurs to their knees. Is time management.
Wow. Yeah.
So they have to really start managing their time and being good time managers of themselves. Poor time management is really quite well known in entrepreneurship. I think that's a big one. And also they have to be prepared. I don't know where this fits in. We on values, but you have to know that, especially in the beginning, you're going to wear many hats. So the value of being willing to take that on.
Yeah.
Because and also throwing the what's the word that I was looking at, sort of a sense of entitlement, that somehow it's just going to land in your lap. You know, we have to get rid of that. That's just not going to happen. When you're working at a job, you know, the lead is put on your desk and Kim, you need, here's your lead, go and do the work. That's not going to happen. So we have to get rid of all of that. We've got to be open, very open to new ideas, to new thinking, and also very important, Hitesh, to get out of our comfort zones, to go and play in the unknown. You know, because that's where it all happens, especially with entrepreneurship. So people are very comfortable where they are. We need to get uncomfortable. So really, the value of a lot of people have the value of certainty. They like certainty. We were actually born that way. You know, some people are better at it than not. Uncertainty. So sorry for that. We have to almost embrace the value of uncertainty. Because there is a lot of value in uncertainty. I'm not sure where we are, Hitesh.
I think we've gone well beyond 10 here, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, if people just listen to the last 5 minutes and just focus on what you shared with all of these values, that is enough to give them a head start with their dreams of actually becoming an entrepreneur. So Kim, thank you so much. That's really, really valuable. But I want to flow into a question that has been troubling my mind now for the last 6 months, or maybe the last year actually. And that is, is it possible that everybody can be rich? And I've asked a few people this question now, and everybody has given their own sort of take on this. And I'd like to hear your take. is it possible for every single person to actually be rich? So if you had to teach me a set of tools or teachings,
Mm,
or if you had to
mm,
teach 1,000 people, is it
mm,
possible that 1,000 of those 1,000 people will become rich?
mm,
And I feel like it's not really possible, because every 4 years we have the Olympic Games, and every one of those every one of those athletes all train really hard. They have the best
mm,
coaches.
mm,
They put in the time with training. They're eating
mm,
right. Of course, they have to be eating right in order to
mm,
get to that
mm.
state. What separates the people that come out first, second, and third in those races to the people that don't? And what separates, in this context, what we're talking about, businesses and entrepreneurs? How
Mm,
come, even though
mm,
you might teach me the tools, why
mm,
don't I make it? Why
mm,
can't
mm.
everybody be rich?
Yeah. Well, I love that question, and as you say, you've been thinking about it for a while. It's such a valuable question, and I'll also mention a book I read on something like that recently. But you know what, Itish? A short answer is no. The short answer is yes. It is possible for anyone and everyone to achieve that. But in the same token, no, because we can give someone all the tools in the world, but there are a lot of other factors that come in play. First of all, the one that you mentioned about the Olympics, it is also about ability. you know so if a person really really wants, even if they really really want something, but they don't actually have the ability to do that, that is not their strength. They need to look at something else. So I think that they need to play where their strengths are. Now if you've been playing in the wrong strength, it doesn't matter about all the tools and your mindset and whatever. You will be successful, but not as successful as someone else. And I'm sure if you just change that direction to where your strengths really lie, and not only your actual ability, but also the strength of the heart. The heart is pushing in a certain direction. You will see a difference. Also, Hitesh, there's so many. I read this book, The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and that
Outliers.
fascinated me. And I think you should read that book because it's going to answer your question, a lot of it. There are so many outlying factors. You can be born into the same family. There's the story about twin brothers were born into a family. The father's an alcoholic.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
you know the story, right?
Yes, but yeah,
So,
but please share
okay,
this so everybody. Yeah,
sure. So the father's a terrible alcoholic, and if you know anything about alcoholism, it destroys lives. Okay, twin brothers were born, and the one became a very very successful business owner, very successful in his life, and the other son became exactly like his dad, a down and out alcoholic. And they interviewed these two boys, and the person who was successful said, look at your life. How did you even make this happen? And his answer was, well, coming from what I came from, there was no ways I couldn't be anything else but successful. There was no ways that I wanted to live the kind of life my dad lived, right? So that's how his mind thought. They asked the other son, that the twin, you know, what made you turn out the way you did? And he said, well, look at my family. Look where I came from. Look what my model was. I couldn't be anything other than what my dad was. So it's perspective.
yeah,
It's how you see it. But also, Tesh, what I think is so important is we have a situation like those boys had a situation, and they each, with their own minds, make up the story of what that means to them. So the one story was, I cannot be like that. I will never be like that. I need to be different. The other story was, this is my model. This is all I see. There is only one way I can be. This is my lot in life. I was born into it. So it depends on what story you go with. Isn't that fascinating? So whatever story we have developed around anything, around money, success, around relationships, that kind of thing, the story may not be true. We've made it true. We've latched onto an idea of that story, and now we're making it. You know what's scary? We're making it our lives.
Yeah.
So we have to go back to the story, investigate there, and ask, is it true or not? Is it just a story?
Yeah. I
So I but Hitesh, in that book, there are so many outlying factors that have a role to play. You know, depending on the era you were born in, depending on which country, which climate. It was absolutely fascinating how all of these things,
yeah.
depending on whether technology was available or not, etc., etc., depending on some beneficiary coming out of the blue and putting you through university or not, you know. So there are many, many outlying factors that actually do have a role to play.
Yes. Yeah. You have actually answered it really perfectly. That there are so many factors. They are just there. In fact, there's an infinite number of variables that decide what actually happens, and I've been calling it very loosely luck. That
Mm.
and but luck can mean like so many things to it.
Yes. Yes, and so you'll love that book, Hitesh, because he talks about
Outliers.
luck. Because a lot of it, quite frankly, is about luck, for the lack of
Yeah.
a better word,
Yeah.
because of all of these outlying factors. You know, he goes into millionaires' names that we know and don't know. That he actually defines the science of it, looking at the years certain people were born, if they were male or female, and if you happen to,
Yeah.
all of those kinds of things, which is luck, of course. And then, of course, you've got your own personal perseverance and determination.
Yes.
But also, he speaks about people in the book who had that determination and persistence, but they just never made it. And then,
Yeah.
of course, he goes back into the history and you can look at certain things. Very, very interesting.
And I think it really comes down to how you wish to live your life. Because I don't know if I'm going to make $1 million, but I'm not going to sleep in my bed every day and not get up and just try. I'm going to put in the effort and I'm going to put on my running shoes and I'm going to run. I might not finish the race, but I'm not going to sit in on my behind and not run. I'm going to wake up and run anyway. And
Yes.
who knows?
So there's a certain drive in you
Yeah.
that will not allow that to happen. And I always say, I know this gets a little bit morbid, or could, Hitesh, but this always scares the heebie-jeebies out of me, in
Mm.
that I do not want to be on my rocking chair one day on the porch, because that is going to happen, whether we like
Yeah.
it or not. I pray that I'm in my 90s when that happens, and I think that I will be in my 90s. But I don't want to be sitting in that rocking chair or lying, God forbid, in a hospital bed somewhere. And in that moment, think to myself, if only I had,
Yeah.
if only I pushed myself a little bit further, if only I had taken a little bit of risk there, or just, push the envelope a bit, or didn't quit when I did. Because nothing, I just got goosebumps now, nothing can take that back, Hitesh. It's
Yeah.
gone. you know so what drives me as a coach, I mean, I don't dwell in the negative, but I think negative is actually also very useful to get to places you want to be. So my biggest fear, one of my biggest fears, is regret. I don't want to regret, you know and so that kind of drives me not to. I at least have to, like you said, try, just try and do it, you know at least when I get to the end, I know I've given it my all.
Absolutely. Never, never
So,
ever
so
live your life. Yeah. Go on.
sorry, Tish, I just had a thought about
Yes.
entrepreneurs and where
Uh-huh.
we're heading here. I think number one,
Mhm.
all the things that we've talked about, the values, the abilities, the non-abilities, whatever, we need to show up. if we want this, we need to show up. And it cannot be what I've discovered through working with people, they don't know it themselves. But what they want is more of a wish. They wish it to be, but they don't understand what they need to
Yeah.
do to make that wish a serious want. So, first of all, you need to really dig deep and say, is this just a wish? Somehow magically, I would be a successful business owner or entrepreneur. Or is it seriously something you want for yourself and nothing else will suffice? So we got to, a lot of people wish. I wish I was 5 kilograms lighter. I wish I were, I wish I could run the comrades. I wish I could. It's just a wish. So we've got to get down and dirty with ourselves and determine: is this just a wish? Because that's too exhausting. I must let it go and just rather live my life. Or do I really, really want this? And if I really, really want it, what am I prepared to do to go out and get it?
Absolutely. It has to be a strong desire to want to actually go out, because a wish is very weak. It's like a very, it's a very, it's a very diluted dream. Your dream
Yes,
has to be so powerful that it wakes you up in the morning, that you don't need an alarm to wake you up. That's when you know.
exactly. Exactly. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret here. Maybe you've experienced this, Hitesh. We all have. But
Yeah.
a wish is actually very uh, uh, um, very not only exhausting, but it can send you into depression, in fact. Because when you wish something, you keep on wishing, but nothing's happening. you know so it's just not a good way to be, and you don't understand why it's not happening. It's because you're
Mm,
just wishing. There's no implementation, no action, no nothing. So we've just got to be willing to put our gumboots on and actually do something about it, if the desire is that strong.
absolutely. There are a few things that I want to share with you, because I have been making notes as you are also talking. There was just very quickly, there was a study done, where they had interviewed people on their deathbed. And the one thing in common which they all had was regret. They all had that regret. So, as you are sharing, do not live your life so that you get to the end of it and say, I wish I had, do
Mm.
it now, kind of thing. And the other thing that I wanted to share with you, talking about uh, the outliers and all of the variables that we have, and I always had the thought that you can teach me to play the piano, but you cannot teach me how to make a masterpiece. That's the feeling that I have, and I feel you have to sort of be there. It comes down to that element of luck, and luck can mean so many things. But I think I can learn how to paint, but I will never be a famous author. I
Yes,
will never
yes,
be yeah, I will never be Michelangelo,
yes.
Picasso.
So there's almost, I agree with you. I mean, if we look at, I always forget his name, Steve Jobs. You know,
Yes.
he, there's almost, because anyone can learn the computer, anyone can learn to paint. I've actually been to painting classes, but just like you, I'm nowhere near a Michelangelo. Okay, but we can learn how to do it. There is actually a formula, but the difference is, a masterpiece on the piano or painting or entrepreneurship. There's almost there's something in you that you are that. You are
Yes.
that. And there is an obsession with it.
Mm.
There's like this white hot obsession. Wherever I go, I'm looking at businesses, I'm talking to business. Like I'm almost obsessed. What they're
Yeah.
thinking, how can they improve? How can they, be successful? It's not just a sideline. It's just my
Yeah.
passion. It's almost like an obsession, I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All of the really great people that have existed were really obsessed with their work, and sometimes not in a good way, but they were really eat, sleep, and drink their
Yes,
passions.
they just couldn't be any other way, you know. When I look at certain people, and they might have regrets, I wish I had spent more time with family, and whatever the regrets may be, and maybe they shouldn't have been family people in the first place, you know what I mean? But it's almost when it's so deep, um, it's almost, I suppose, almost like an addiction. So you also have to manage that, because we don't want something that is harmful to you. But you also need that strong drive that you're going to do it. You can do it. You will do it. I can. If I think I can, I will do it,
I want to share a very short story that's linked to what you shared earlier on about the two brothers, or the two siblings earlier on. And it's a very short story, and I'm sure you actually may know it, but I don't know whether this is a true story or not, but I think it's a very fascinating story. That Nike sent one of their salesperson into Africa. And so the person came to Africa, had a look, and he went back to Nike and said, look, Nike, in Africa, nobody wears shoes, so we can't do any business here. So they sent another sales guy to Africa, and he came back to Nike, and he said, guess what? Nobody wears shoes in Africa. We are in business.
Wow.
I love that story,
Wow. That is, isn't that an amazing story? I mean, such a good example, Hitesh, of exactly what we were talking about. Same situation. The situation hasn't changed. It's the way we view it, right? And talking about Nike is, of course, everyone knows the signature, the logo of Nike. I can't remember the details. I read this not too long ago, but they were trying to come up with the logo for Nike, and they were just not getting it right. And I think it was a woman who just, they were just exasperated, like, enough already. We can't find this proper logo. And she just kind of did that. Like, enough already. Okay. And there we go. There we go. So yes, another thing is not to overthink things, not to overanalyze into, overanalysis leads to paralysis. That's what I've seen as well. So, when you've got an idea, yes, analyze, look at the risk, etc. But the most important thing, Hitesh, especially for entrepreneurs, is we need to take action on that. We cannot let it be an idea on the paper, because in the energetic quantum field, if that idea is in my head, it's not. And if I don't do something about it, guaranteed someone else is going to come along, lock into that idea, and they're going to run with it. So we have to really do something about it.
Great, Kim. Thank you so much. I want to shift now the energy of the conversation a bit into getting a little bit philosophical here. I want to pick your brain and ask you, what would happen, or what do you think would happen in a society in which no one had to actually work and everyone was provided with food, water, shelter, healthcare, everything for free? What do you think would happen to that society? I mean, do we need money? Are we really motivated by money? Or what are your thoughts? I don't want to put any ideas into your head. I just want you to speak freely.
Okay, so that's quite a very interesting question. And I mean, we haven't talked about this before, so this is really just what I'm thinking. But what I'm thinking is that we'd have a very sad society. And I mean literally sad, depressed society, because there's something innate in human beings. We were born with the need to improve. We were actually, so if everything's given to us and we don't have to really work for anything, etc., there's no, so everything seems right, but it's not. And we don't know what it is. And I think it's because the soul is speaking to us and saying, you need to improve, you need to upskill, you need to show something for your life. But in that kind of society, it wouldn't exist. Okay. Another thing about the money, you know what, Hitesh, this is my thing. It doesn't matter whether it's money or whatever it is. It happens to be money. But we need something like money to track our progress, to measure our progress. So I was just thinking about this the other day, that money is not everything, although I don't say that lightly, because it is everything if you can't put food on the table. Okay. You know, you know what I'm talking about. So we don't say these things lightly, because number one is survival. But what I mean is, even we know there's so many stories about millionaires that are unhappy, people that commit suicide. So money's not everything, but it sure is a way to track if you're actually progressing on your goal or not. So if it wasn't money, it would be something else. We need to test and measure. You know, am I improving? Am I reaching my goal? And money is one of those ways to track it. Um, so it's quite a great inspiration when I think of that, because it's like, wait a minute, my account, if I look at my bank account now, it doesn't reflect what I want it to look like. Okay. Let's say I wanted 10 million in my bank account, and I look at my bank account and it's 1 million. That's telling me something's wrong. You know, it's telling me, how am I showing up? If I want 10 and there's only 1 million, so it's a good way of tracking and measuring against myself and progress of your business, whatever it may be. And of course, so I lost my train of thought there. But in a society like that, and you know what, I really don't want to go into it because I don't want to speak untruths, but I know, I'm not sure if it's in Denmark or in Norway, but we can do some research. It's northern, in the Scandinavian countries. They have a very amazing society, you know, and they're well looked after. But I was also reading an article on that the suicide rate is very high. And of course, there are many variables, but the one variable is the people are bored because everything is taken care of. Okay. And that's the kind of question you asked me right in the beginning, that when everything's taken care of, we become bored. We don't even know why, because nothing's actually wrong. Why am I bored? Because there's something in us, there's a drive in us that wants to always improve. Doesn't matter where we are. If we get here, we want to improve from there to there, and so on. In a society that doesn't allow for that, I think we would be heading for some serious issues. Some serious emotional and mental issues, which also then lead to physical issues, you know?
You know, it's a question that does make me think, you know, and you can get lost in it, because on the one hand, everyone should have access to at least clean water and food and shelter, to healthcare. At the same time, you know, what you are saying is right, and I also agree that, you know, we need something to really aspire towards, something to really drive us to want to achieve, because it's a fact that most people die after they retire. Of course, people will die, but people die after 3 years from retiring, because they have no purpose now. There's nothing for them to actually do. They may have a lot of money in their bank account, but there's sort of nothing for them to do with their lives. And we need something to actually be
and they hadn't prepared for retirement, you know. So there was a wish in their mind about when retirement happened, they would do such and such, but you know, there wasn't any planning or really thinking about it. But on the note of clean water and all that, that is, to me, that should be, that is a given that any human being on this planet Earth deserves, you know. But yes, I think if we need, we meant to be driven. I'll give you a quick story. The other day, there's a lane next to my complex which is really dirty. You know, it's not a lane that people walk past, and a lot of, you know, the street people use it for various reasons and etc. etc. I won't go into that. But anyway, one of the ladies in the complex behind that lane, actually, there were three street kids that were hanging around, and she asked, you know, if they would clean up the lane for some pocket money and stuff. And you know what I saw, Hitesh, because I watched these guys. First of all, they did a fantastic job. They're young guys, maybe in the early 20s. But you know how proud they were when I said to them, look at this. This is amazing. And I actually asked them, how do you feel? Doesn't it feel good to do some good work? Doesn't it feel right to, like, you know, work for something? They were, you know, they were beaming. So it's people, we need to do something. We want to make a difference, you know. And every day I look at that lane, I just think, and it took the guys, I mean, it was hectic. It took them about 6 hours, but you could see that they felt proud. They were acknowledged. They felt proud. They did something worthwhile that day. So
Yes.
we do. You know, I don't think we born just to do nothing and have everything done for us. We actually want to strive for something better.
You know, there's an ashram in India. I can't remember the name of it right now. But what happens is that in this ashram, it's actually a very large community. And in this community, there is no money. Money does not exist.
Yes, I know.
Everyone
Yeah.
stays
Yeah.
there. And then there are people assigned to working in the kitchen where they would cook. There are people that are assigned to
Yes.
teaching the kids, and they do that. And they, you know, everyone has their role, but they all have this understanding that they are going to work together. But
Yes.
in the society that you and I live in the West, you know, there's what's going to happen when I want to go on holiday for 1 month, you know, somewhere
Yes.
to some island, or
Yes.
I want to buy this Ferrari. So I think there's a lot
Yes.
of desire, greed, want that maybe we need to
Yes.
also work on, you know.
Yes, definitely. And you know, I can't remember the name. I know of that ashram in India. It's become apparently quite popular and very quite
Okay.
famous now.
Mm.
And I think yeah, I don't know too much about it, but I did read a little bit up on that. And they use the barter system, you know. So
Yeah.
if I wanted some social media done, you would do this for me, and vice versa. And I was very interested in that, and because it seems to be very successful, and I would love to visit one day. I think tourists are allowed, you know, you go and pay to stay there and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But a couple of years back, Hitesh, I was also into this whole thing about, you know, I want to get away from money. I want to barter. I want to trade.
Mm.
And there's a worldwide organization. I can't think of the name now. I think it's talent.org or something. And I started trading my services online. So there's no money. You know, let's say I do a coaching session, I get a certain amount of credits. Let's say I get 10 credits. Then if I want to go and stay at a hotel in Durban, I look for a hotel who's also on the system, and you exchange credits. And look here, this is of course not like the ashram, but I did that for about a year or so, and they still send me emails. But it was good to do, because it didn't work for me. For me personally, and I know a few other people as well, because sometimes the value of exchange is not equal. And also what I noticed, because I remember I was in Durban, and I went and I used a B&B on this program. And I mean, the quality of the B&B and the service, and, you know, was not good. So it was, and then you were also limited in what you could choose. And I think human beings love, one thing about human beings is we love choice.
Yeah.
So when I wanted to exchange my credits for a B&B, I didn't have that much choice. So pros and cons. So here's a thought. You know, I'm not about either or. I love the word and.
Yeah.
So is there a way to combine that idea with also making your millions? And I think it's about the end of it, you know. And I think what that would do is address things like out of control greed, out of control power, You know, if it was a sort of a tapestry of those two, it would address all those emotions that get people into some serious trouble.
Hmm. I don't think that any government is going to love the idea of having a system in which we actually trade and barter, because we can't tax that. So no government is going to be open to that as yet in the world that we actually live in. But I just want to talk a little bit about fair trade, or talk a little bit about currency. Because I know that I can get a job here in Durban working for McDonald's, and I'll probably earn about, let's talk in dollars here, I'll probably earn about $200 per month for just working a normal shift in McDonald's here in Durban. If I have to go to the USA and go to New York, I know for a fact that I can earn about $1,500. So here we have the same people putting in the same amount of effort and work and time, yet the value of how much they get is not equal. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that, on doing the same work? I mean, sometimes we might even do the same work for coaching. We might coach here in South Africa for, let's talk rands now, for maybe 1,500 rands. But I know that it maybe in the US the guys will charge $300-400 for
Yes.
their time, and I know that you know this. Yeah.
Yes.
So how do we?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and in fact, it's one of my modules on my top 6 mastermind program. There's one word that comes to mind here, and that is self-worth. Self-worth. So, and especially that example with coaching, Hitesh, it's true. In the States, for let's say a coaching hour, nothing less than $175 or whatever. But here, we're not. In South Africa, I charge what I would charge in the States, because it's not about the country, it's about what value I'm giving and what value the client is receiving. So it's all, that's a big thing, but it's all about self-worth. And with so many entrepreneurs that I work with, this is the number one thing that trips them up. Well, let me put it this way. The number one thing that trips entrepreneurs up from progressing to the next level is pricing. And pricing, when I start working with that client, pricing is almost directly related to self-worth. Yes, of course, there's a ceiling to certain markets, etc., etc. But if you are that good and people want what you have, they will ignore the ceiling. I mean, Anthony Robbins, he completely ignores the ceiling. There is no ceiling with him,
Yeah. Well,
So,
he's so big that he can break through the ceiling anyway, so there are absolutely no limits with him. And that's a really great attitude that he has.
And Hitesh, what I want to come back to, because someone will say, yes, but I mean, I live in South Africa and that's what McDonald's in South Africa pays, okay? So it really depends. If you value yourself that much and your dreams are so, as you say, strong, your desire so strong, you would actually start finding a way. I'm using this as an example. I cannot work for that in McDonald's in South Africa. I want to work for this amount. I'm going to find a way to get to the States and work at McDonald's there. Am I making sense? So if your self-worth is so strong, you are not going to settle. Yes, you might start there, but in your mind, it will always be, I'm going to get to the top McDonald's in the world and I'm going to work there and make my millions. I've known people, there's a guy I knew, in fact, it was my first boyfriend's brother, Michael. Back in the day, he started working for the Spur. Do you remember this? I mean, of course, the Spur, the South African Spur, which is, it's amazing. It's just like one of our things, South African things. And back in the day, and he used to work so hard, I mean, we were still at school and all that kind of thing. And, Spur gave, because his desire was so strong. And from Spur, I didn't know at the time, but his thing was about learning, educating himself, and he had a dream to own his own restaurant. And now I think he owns about 3 or 4, maybe more restaurants. He even owns the restaurant up, the top of Table Mountain.
Yes, yes, yes.
He
Wow.
owns that restaurant. And this all started in the Spur. People would say, oh, Spur, just a waitering job, you get your tips and that kind of thing. Not if your mindset is different. He had a goal and he achieved it. I mean, it's amazing. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. And that started in Spur. So also people that started in McDonald's went on to do their own thing, became famous chefs and things like that. So really, it's your dream, your self-worth, and not settling for anything less. Not settling. That's a big one. We settle easily. We like the comfort. We like to be comfortable. Even though we don't like what the comfort is giving us, the outcome is not great, but we still like the comfort zone.
I think that was so well answered. There was no way that I would have actually thought about that and answering the question in the way you've answered. That if you simply don't like earning that less in McDonald's, then go and get what you are worth. Then go and earn what you are actually worth. That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. But if you would allow me to be a victim and just to complain a bit, because when I go out here with my friends, with my bros here in South Africa, when we go out and we have a beer, we pay about 12 Rand to 15 Rand, which is like $1, for a beer. But when I travel to places like Australia, and I'm with my bros there, I always drink less because I'm paying like $10 for a beer. It just feels not fair, because what's in that beer in that bottle is the same that I'm getting here. I mean, why do I have to actually pay more for the same thing?
Yes, and I really get that. Tesha, I've lived in quite a few places around the world for about 25 years of my life, and in different continents. So I've seen all of this play out and been part of it. But yes, I get that, and that's one of the kind of a negatives about being South African, if there's a negative, is that the salaries and the cost and the exchange rate. I mean, just plainly the exchange rate. I believe it's almost 19 to 1 now. But I also must say that when you live in those other countries, that it is also all relative. You're earning bigger salaries in many places, but the expense of living is normally far higher. I've never lived in Australia, but I know that, especially in Sydney, I mean, the rate of living there, or the expense of living, is very high. So it does even out in a sense, but it makes it very difficult for South Africans to try and make it over there, especially initially, or even just to travel. I mean, if you want to travel and go on holiday, people just don't, because the exchange rate is literally 1 to 20. How can, unless you've really, really got lots of money, how does anyone do
that? We are approaching our hour now, Kim, that we've been talking, and I'm really, really enjoying this so much. It has been so much of fun. But I just want to ask you one question, and this is a question, maybe it's for the value of other people, but I think also for me, because I've never met anybody that's, I very rarely met people that have made like 1 million Rand. There are very few people. And I think there are very few people that I can ask this next question to, because I don't know them so well. We don't have this kind of a relationship with. But I would like to ask you, what does it feel like to wake up in the morning and have 1 million Rand in your bank account? Or even if it's not, cash in your bank account, but knowing that you have assets somewhere in some way or form that amounts to 1 million Rand. I have not made that 1 million Rand yet. And I just want a glimpse into the feeling that is when you wake up in the morning, hey, I have 1 million Rand in my account. how does
Mm,
that feel? Is it as
mm.
good as I think it is? Or
That's a very interesting question. I think there's a two-pronged answer to that. I think for me personally, there's a difference in the feeling of having R1 million if I tied up all my assets and I valued that, and it's a million, 5, 10, whatever it is. That feeling, but this is personal, okay, is quite different to opening up my bank account in the morning and seeing R1 million sitting there. Okay. And I think that resonates with you as well. So if the R1 million is in assets, we actually almost have to remind ourselves that it's there and that I've made that happen. If I had to cash that in, it would be that in my bank account. For me, it's a different feeling. So I love the feeling of actually, of course, I want the assets for many reasons. Um, but I also love the feeling of seeing the zeros in my bank account. So it's about building that up. But the feeling is, it's very interesting. If we don't keep acknowledging ourselves and reminding ourselves and connecting the dots of, you know what, I'm actually making it happen. Last month I had 10 Rand in my account. Now this month I've got 100. Now I've got 1,000. If we can't acknowledge those steps along the way, I'm telling you, Tesh, when you get to R1 million, it will mean nothing to you because it's just like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. I need to keep on going. So with each one, it's like last month was 10, this month's 100. Celebrate it. And of that 100 Rand, take 10%, which is 10 Rand, and do something special with it. I can't even say buy a cup of coffee because that doesn't buy us a cup of coffee. Whatever it may be, okay? And then when it's 1,000 Rand, you take 10% of that 100 Rand, and then you go and have your cup of coffee and maybe treat someone. If we don't do that along the way and getting to the feeling of it now, when it's R1 million, you won't feel anything because we don't know what it feels like. We won't know how to celebrate it. It's just like more, more, more. Now when it's 10 million, now when it's 100 million, then I'll feel that feeling. But this is very personal. For me, along the way, acknowledge the growth of it. Acknowledge the feeling. Last month I was so unsettled because there was no money in the account. Now I'm still unsettled, but I'm feeling a little bit safer. Am I making sense? Acknowledge the feeling of that growth, so that when it gets to the million, you will know the feeling. And it's a very amazing feeling to know that there's enough money in the bank account that if anything happened to me for a year, like it wouldn't touch sides and my business would grow. I'm just giving an example. That's not my case at the moment, right now.
yes.
But that's what I would love, that there is enough. And of course, the business is growing in such a way that if you took a holiday for a year, or if you just decided to take a sabbatical, like hands off, and that money still stayed there because of careful investment, etc., but also your business continued growing because you now know how to grow a business, isn't that the best feeling in the world? That is true freedom, you know? But long story short, doesn't matter how little it is, 10, 100 Rand, 1,000 Rand, 10,000 Rand, you have to connect the dots of how you made that happen and celebrate the feeling of that. Because believe me, 100 Rand feels a lot better than 10.
Yeah.
If we can't celebrate the little things, we will not be able to celebrate and feel the bigger ones.
Absolutely. Your answer is worth $1 million. That is such a heart-opening, mind-opening answer. I was expecting you just to tell me how great it feels, but you've shared with me, or shared with us, so much of wisdom just in that last few minutes. It's just incredible that, I don't think I'm going to feel more amazing when I make that 1 million Rand. It's like just being grateful and feeling that feeling now,
Yes.
even for that 10,000. So when you gradually get there, because
Yes.
very rarely do people wake up and suddenly, 1 million Rand, it's
Yes.
slowly builds up.
Exactly. It's a progress unless you win the lotto.
Yeah.
Let me also share there. I know our time's up, Hitesh, but
Mhm.
we know all the stories. People win the lotto within a year, maximum 3 years. And I know someone personally, a friend of a friend, not a friend of a friend, a cousin of a friend, who lost it within a year. Okay, um, because guess what? They didn't have the practice of just what we were talking about. There was no budgeting, there was no money sense, there was no connection feeling to what that amount of money means and what you could do with it. So this practice along the way is so important, because when you win that lotto, if you did, you would know what to do with it. It wouldn't be a foreign feeling. You wouldn't go moggy, you know. I know someone here in Glenwood. He had can I quickly share this, Hitesh?
Yes, yes.
True story.
Mhm.
Um, he had a motorbike accident some years back, and it wasn't his fault. It took years. I think it was 10 plus years. Finally, the lawsuits, blah blah blah, and
Yeah.
he was paid out. I think it was about 3 million. This was just a couple of years ago, 2 years ago max. Guess what? He's basically still a street person. That money, I watched him squander that money here, there, and everywhere. He now has no money at all, and just kind of somehow gets by. And he had, when I saw like that money came through, all I could think of, man, you could set yourself up for life here. But I knew, because he didn't have the practice of it, what was going to happen, and unfortunately it did. Now, just on another note, when I worked in the States, my tax guy, in fact, um, just by chance, him and his wife never ever played the lotto. We lived in North Carolina, they worked in South Carolina. So every Friday they would drive from South Carolina to North Carolina, and they were at a gas station, petrol station, and his wife, for some or other reason, said, let's play the lotto. They never played it, okay? Whatever change he had in his pocket, he played it. He won the lotto of $46 million.
Oh,
I'm sorry, but I almost hated him. Okay. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it was seriously like crazy. And you know that because him and his wife worked at the same company, they actually asked him to resign because of all the people. It was on the front page of the Sunday Times. So everyone just found out who he was, and they were knocking on the doors, wanting money, blah, blah, blah. But long story short, because he was really savvy with money, he knew exactly what he was going to do with it, and he did that. And to this day, he is still that millionaire, because he knew
Mm.
exactly what he was. He had the practice, he had the muscle, he budgeted, that kind of thing. So we have to build up that muscle. So whether it's 10 or 100 or a million,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I think you've ended there on such a really, really awesome note, because I know that if tomorrow I win like $10 million, I'm going to give you $2 million to make sure that I don't lose the other eight. And
I
I
was
just
just
want to
going to
share
say,
with
please come to me, Atesh. Please come to me. We want to make sure. Let's set you up. Yeah.
absolutely, if you want to manage your money, if you want to grow your money, if you want to grow your business, there is no one better than Kim, to support you with that process. Kim is a real powerhouse. If you have an opportunity to just listen to her speak, go to her workshops, please do. Kim, where can the people find you?
Oh, thanks, Hitesh, and really thanks for that. I really do. I think, I love what I do, and I love my clients,
Yes.
and I just want the best for them. And too often I think I believe in them more than they believe in themselves, So we want
Mm.
them to get to the point where it's like, I can do this and I will do the work. But my website is www.veryeasykimknightcoaching.com. kimknightcoaching.com. You can just contact me on the contact page. Or many people now are communicating through my Facebook, Kim Knight Coaching. You can
Great.
leave a message there.
Kim, it's been a wonderful 1 hour with you. I really hope that you are going to be joining us again, because I would love to keep on having these type of conversations, especially with you. So hopefully you'll be open and you'll have time in your
Absolutely.
schedule
It's
to
been
actually talk.
really, it's been wonderful. And thank you for making it so easy and organic and natural. I was a little bit nervous coming on, but you've made it just enjoyable, really, really an enjoyable experience.
Thank you. Thanks, Kim. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching or even listening. And if you loved this conversation, please share it with everyone that you know, especially if you have friends that have a business. So I shall see you again in the next conversation.